a little bit. Okay, so what are the principles that we've been looking at past 2 weeks? Negative space, yeah. What did you say? Empty space, negative space, same thing, yeah. Line from the start, right? But let's just focus on the last couple weeks where we started with cylinders and ellipses and intersecting objects. What are some of the principles that we looked at? Okay, so we were looking at both what we can see and what we know about an object, right? So we call it seeing through the object, okay? We're analyzing its structure. So we have, like when we had the, which one is it? Had this object, remember? What did I draw in this object that you can't actually see? Well, even that doesn't exist in this object.
The axis.
Yeah, okay, the axis. There was a central axis dropping down from the top to the middle. We had, it just gets worse and worse. Time to buy a new one. We had imaginary lines on the base, right? To find the center. That's an analytical approach that helps us to draw the object correctly. So we're balancing what we see, what we can observe, with what we know, what we can analyze, what we can intuitively guess about the object, right? So all of the objects that are up here can function in that way, where you are balancing what you can see. I hope I'm recording. Can I start recording? Oh, thank goodness. With what you know. So take the phone, for instance, this old telephone. What do we know about this object? You guys can come up and look at it if you want to. We can even heft it, for that matter. There's lots of mechanical parts to it, so there's going to be a symmetry. Basically, one side is going to reflect the other. If you divided it right down the center here, this side and that side would be more or less the same, right? There might be some differences, like there's a little light here, but not on that side. There's a little pointer here and not on that side. There's a cord on this side and not on that side. But there's lots of symmetry in there, okay? And it's not just this way. Well, mostly it is on that one. Okay. What about here? What is this? Metal and old. It's a rectangle. There's 4 feet, right? When it's sitting like this, you can't see the full rectangle, right? But you can assume, oh, that's a rectangle. Rectangles work according to linear perspective, which we'll learn a lot more about, but we're going to draw the whole rectangle as a base, right? And build it up from there, even though we can't see all of that. So let's look at this tricycle, for instance. You know that the points of contact, there are 3 of them, thus tricycle. If you were able to find those points and connected them with lines that you can't see, by the way, what shape would you have? A triangle, right. Okay, good. Do we have any axial lines on this? Well, what about right here, from here to there? That would be an axis, right? Even here to there would be an axis. Okay? There's symmetry on this as well. So you can analyze that, how that all works. Every one of these objects has some sort of structural symmetry, axial design points that you can analyze as you observe to help you draw the object, okay? For instance, we have the egg beater here. the handle connects on to the very center of this circle. And you have 3 spokes that are along an equilateral triangle that's inside that circle. Okay? So there's all those things to think about as you're drawing these objects. So structural analysis is what we call it. We're going to balance it with our observational skills we've been building up to this point. Okay, so I'm going to try the phone first. Let's see. You want to make sure that you're looking at the object from like a 3/4 view so that you're not right on it. So it's not a frontal view, and it's also not a profile view, okay? Not from the back, not from the front, not from the side, but from like a 3/4 cut of angle, all right? If you need to move your easel to get to that point, that's fine. I'm gonna move mine just a little bit, and that gives me a good 3/4 angle. All right, so I'm gonna start. We always wanna fit this on the page, fill the space and not go off the edges. Horizontal is gonna work best for this situation. And I wanna be able to fit the extreme points of the object onto the page first and map those out before I get into the details. We always work from general to specific, right? So we have the front edge of that rectangle that is the base of the phone coming about right here. The back edge comes in about like this. Remember our clock angle tool? We can think about that corner being the middle of a clock and those 2 angles coming in as if they're the hands on the clock. We ask ourselves questions like, how far does this deviate from horizontal or vertical? Same thing with that line. How long is that line? We search it out back and forth very lightly, holding onto our pencils loosely. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, I can't see the other 2 lines that form that rectangle, but I can guess that they're close to parallel with what I've already got. If anything, if you continue that line up and this line up, they will meet on a horizon line, receding into the distance. And same thing with these 2, okay? So we'll bring that down just a little bit. So there's the base of the phone. The back comes up kind of at that angle there. And if that back comes up there, then the one we can't see comes up right there. So we're drawing it as if it's transparent. The front, a little bit like that. And then we draw across as if it's just a box at this point. This line and this line will be parallel to each other. This line and this line more or less parallel. Okay. And then this comes up about that angle there. The other one, the face, will also be kind of parallel to that. We're just kind of simplifying the form right now. We're not putting those curves on quite yet. Okay. And that would connect onto the back somewhere like that. We have the back of the phone. So it's a very simple form to start with. Okay. And then we have the receiver up here, and it's taking up, kind of like that. That kind of space right there. We'll get those in there a little bit easier, a little bit more detail, but we're going to work the structure first, the detail second. Where is the very center of the face? What can we do? We can draw diagonals across that rectangle, and we find the very center. I don't see those diagonals there, but we can use our intuition, put them in there. What does that do? That helps us find this ellipse right there in the center. That ellipse is surrounded by another one. We call that a dial. And that helps us to put it on symmetrically, and then there's another one in the very outer part. We'll put that there. Search for form becomes the form. We're drawing very lightly at this point, looking back and forth. Okay. We have some spots where these little feet come down. You draw one, immediately draw where the other one is coming in. Well, maybe kind of like that would be our little cylinder. And here's an ellipse down at the very bottom for that foot. And we're going to draw a little track to make sure that the vertices of our ellipse, the ellipses, will line up parallel to what's already there. So I don't see that track on the phone or on the base, but you draw it in there so that you don't end up with an ellipse that sticks out too far here and one that goes in over here. You want to line them up, okay? That little foot there, and one right here. And if you have them coming this way, you also have a track coming this way, which will help you line up the ellipse that's on the back. Since I see none of the other one over here, I'm not going to worry about drawing that one. It's not going to help me at all. Okay, what do we have here? We have, okay, now we can start kind of playing with a little bit of the shape. There's a little taper right here. There's another taper right there coming up. You notice I'm getting a little darker as I do this. There's a little bit of a curve. It comes down right here. And then it kind of curves a little bit right here, but not much. And this comes up like that. There's not much of an edge here. I'm probably not going to draw that very dark because that just kind of turns the corner so softly. Oh, so soft. And we have the base of the phone coming around right here. And it kind of turns the corner and comes back on a straight line. Okay. All right, we're going to put the little hooks. Let's see, there's one that's right, we have that little form there. Comes up like this, maybe at a little bit of an angle. And then we're going to draw all the way over on a parallel line so that we can line up the top of this hook here with the top of this hook over here. And it comes down like this. So then this one comes in about right there. About like that. Sometimes I can't see things very well, so I have to get closer to see what's happening. Oh, I see. There's a line that comes back right there. I got it. Okay. Okay, so then it comes back on that same angle as everything else. All right. And then what's happening with the inside of that hook? Goes up and then comes down, and there's another line at the top. Okay. So kind of curves up, comes down, and then there's just a little horizontal line there. And the same thing over here. So that's one of those axial lines that we draw that we can't see. Although we do see the bottom of the phone or the receiver coming across right here and the top. And this is just a little bit of a curve. So we draw it back and forth. to get the symmetry right. This comes in like this. And in fact, why don't we draw that whole bell there? It's about like this. Let's draw a parallel line over to this side. Make sure we get the bottom of the bell lined up over here. And it comes up like this and connects on. So search out that form. We kind of have the top of the phone coming across like this. Down, around. It's kind of, actually don't see much of that after all. Okay, everything from here is just basically detail. For instance, how do we get, it's just further refinement, I guess is what I'm saying, but how do we get all of the little dial, the little finger dials around on the dial, right? How do we figure those out? Well, we know that right about here is that little, I don't know what we're going to call that. Is that a break or something like that? And it's pointing up to the siren, the little notification light right there. And how many finger holes are on there? Do you know? 1, 2, 3, 4. There would be 10, 0 through 9, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then there's space where there could be 11 and 12. So they've divided it up basically into 12 spaces. Can you divide a circle into 12 spaces? I don't know. Can you do that? That's 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not the right division. You'd have to do it in thirds, which is a triangular sort of thing, right? So you have, well, that's a tough one. I'm not going to erase or anything like that. So I'm going to put my intuition into form here. There would be one right here, and there'd be one coming on an equilateral triangle like that, straight across. So there'd be another one right here, probably another one right there. And then you'd have another triangle coming in here. So you would have then, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd have to figure this out. It would be a challenge, right? Here, 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 and here. And then you'd have another one coming like this, I believe, here, and another one right here. Okay. I'm probably putting too many in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's right, because there's not one right there. So you can analyze all that and put it in. Chord. Some of these things, like the electrical chords and the, in this case, the telephone cord, they have a little bit of an irregular shape. And so what you want to do in this case, looking at a negative space right here, so we're just going to give it its full shape here, like it's a snake. Before we start doing any of the details, which are basically, you have these chords wrapped up around each other. and they just basically stack onto each other. And you're just going to draw them as they wrap around this structure coming around. Okay? So, this needs to come down a little bit further. More like this. Those are the principles involved. And once you get it to the point where you've got it lightly drawn out, then it's time to really work on sharpening the line and making sure that the details are all in there. So you come in, for instance, you can switch your grip on your pencil. This has a little ellipse coming around the top, and it has this kind of elliptical structure coming around like that. And then there's another one right here. It comes up like this on this little dome. And you'd sharpen all of that in there. You don't have to put shading or anything like that. We're just working on line, okay? And you'd want to make the whole drawing appear with all of those details sharpened in there. It comes around like that. This. And it takes a lot of observation to make sure you're getting it right. Some of these lines won't be very sharp. Not like that. But there are lots of them that are kind of high contrast. And you're going to push back the gestural lines by coming in with a darker line, darker and sharper line. Notice we're still not doing any chicken scratching. We never will do any chicken scratching. Sharpen your pencil as needed. Okay, and now we just keep going with this and refining the drawing, getting the details in once I've got the structure in place. Any questions at all? Ready to go at it? Same principles apply to all of those objects. Okay? All right, go to it. I'm going to keep drawing for just a little bit here. Okay, so the tricycle, a little tricky, but we're at the right angle here, kind of a 3/4 view. We're gonna see, just to see, do we need a horizontal? Yeah, horizontal page will be good. Okay, so what do we start with? Maybe this kind of a bottom angle axis that just runs along the bottom of the front tire, but gives you the angle. The trike is kind of sitting at that angle, maybe not quite so steep. And maybe that bottom angle comes through here. And what's the general?
Question.
Yeah.
So when we make a triangle, do you do like edge tire to edge tire, or like?
Yeah, we could put that triangle in. Yeah. Like this. But I'm not thinking like it is kind of like an equilateral triangle if you were looking down on it. But since we're looking at an oblique angle, you know, it's going to be just a little more like that. What's the angle with these tires? Maybe I need to make things just a little bit smaller to fit them on the page. Maybe even just a little bit smaller. And maybe bring this further over. So it doesn't look much like a tricycle yet, right?
No.
But here's where the front tire touches the ground.
Okay.
Here's where probably the back tire touches the ground. And here's where the other back tire touches the ground. Maybe more like right there. And then if I want to connect this spot to basically the way that the stem is angled, I'm going to put a line in that does that. Okay? Yeah, it kind of gives me the idea of the tricycle tilt like this. And then, you know, we've got this little, the frame of the tricycle is kind of coming up like this towards the stem, coming down to this axis that will connect the wheels, basically. Yeah, and that axis might be up a little bit higher, obviously, than the wheels.
Yeah.
So then that stem is kind of an arc coming up this way, or the frame, and then the stem connects on about like this. And then let's just kind of do this as if it's a piece of wire. There's the front part of the handlebars that's going to be parallel to kind of this whole setup over here, because we haven't turned that wheel of the trike. And it kind of goes up, and there's a reflection up here, and that comes down, and that kind of comes over. So we're just kind of giving it a stick figure to start with. Okay, stem comes down, frame comes over. We'll figure out the seat later on. It's kind of reserved, right? We got a reserved seat. This kind of comes down. Still drawing light. Okay, so we get to this point where we have the stem is like this small cylinder, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. I think we can put that in. It's got ellipses, but we're going to do it super light. And then we have the, I can't remember what they call these things. The arms that come down to hold on to this wheel. Notice how I'm keeping all of that parallel, 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 parallel. And this does taper a little bit. And then there's the axis here. Why can't I think of the actual name of that piece of steel that goes through at the center? It's like in a car you have. The what? Not the rims, but this rod that goes through and connects the wheels together. Is it called an axis? I don't know. It just doesn't sound, it's not ringing true. Okay, so anyway, we're building the structure, right? This is center, and then we're going to center this ellipse, the wheel, on this center here. Drawing it out carefully to start with. I need to open it up just a little bit more, don't I? But the search for form will become the form. How many times have I gone around? Am I getting dizzy yet?
You've come close.
Yeah, maybe something around there. Okay, how about we leave it right. Maybe it needs to be a little bit smaller. I'm trying to think of this as being the center. This is a 6B. It's very soft. Yeah, but it's really dark. So if you start, I could use any pencil really. It's just that I need this to show up on the video. All right, there's also like a little mud flap. I'm just gonna make sure it's there. And then this is pretty important back here that we have this little back platform, right?
Yeah.
And from where I'm standing, I can't see the back corner. It's behind the frame. But that's good because that locates it for me. And it comes forward like this, drops down, and then it comes over. Yeah, about like that. I might be drawing the back wheel off the edge. I will be, won't I? That'll be a bad thing. Maybe this actually needs to come up a little bit higher. Maybe I've drawn that too low. So I know it's behind the frame. How does it relate to this axis right here? I hold my pencil up. Okay, so it's actually a little bit higher. That's going to help fix that. Yep. Something more like this. And it comes over. That's much better. Okay. That might fix that whole issue. So when I draw this line and this line, I'm thinking about how they relate to each other kind of in a parallel. Same thing with here and here, right? And then we've got, I can't see this line here, but it's there. See very little of this. There we go. I mean, it's just this elongated box, right? There's going to be some curves there that we'll get in there later on, but we've got it. Where's the center? Let's draw a diagonal here and here. And we get the center. The center is important because that's where the frame connects on. Okay, then the axis is going to come across right here. And right close to that, we have an ellipse, and then another ellipse here, which would be there, there for that side. And then we have the other wheel coming in here. Remember how we were going to hit the ground? We're close to it. Let's back it up just a little bit. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit lower there. Observation married to intuition here, like that. Well, these wheels relate to each other on a cylindrical base. Parallel lines across from each other, like that. Yeah. It goes just a little bit further behind. Maybe more like that, yes. Yeah. that too much? Did I close that one down too much? Probably got too close to the edge. So that's the way I would start that one. That gives me all this structural componentry. I haven't even put the seat in. Let's do that. Let's see. Where does that come across in relation to this wheel? This is where our negative space really comes in handy. We're going to run that bolt through about like that, compare it to all the negative space that we have here, and that gives us the seat. Well, what is the seat really? It's basically, well, you might think of it as a triangle. There's a kind of a taper line right here. Could this fit in a little box and then taper it in? Have a line here, have a line here, have a line here, and a line here and line here. It's not quite a triangle, really. That I had to go look at it to make that assumption. So right where that comes up, then we're going to have kind of a line coming across here. These lines will be basically parallel to all these other lines that we have coming in. Well, this goes beyond where we have this. Yeah, it comes about like that. Okay. Let's just connect it like this. And then how about the front? There'll be another one. And then it just basically kind of falls down like that. This comes around, flares out. Yeah, I mean, you could build it off of that pretty easily. This comes all the way down and across. Up. There's a little nose on that thing. And this is just a nice flowing line at this point. Comes around, has a sharp back, flows around and up. This has its own little thing going on there, up and then around. And that's kind of gestured in basically. Everything else is basically like, here's that part of the handlebar, and there's an echoing line coming up like that. There's one coming across like this, and then around like that, and then down just briefly. And then we have the grip. This comes over, down, over to be parallel to the first line there, and then up, kind of folds around like that, and then you have the grip coming around. And we could finish off with the details there on the grip. This grip comes around, not quite to touch the seat, before it comes around like that, and we could finish those details off as well. But since we're still drawing some rough stuff, well, there's like a little bolt right here or something, and another ellipse that comes around. And then you have the rest of the shaft coming in, connecting on. And it's just a matter of putting in the details, you know. I mean, it would take me a while to continue to draw this, but let's just see how this front tire looks. It kind of comes around like this. Comes around, hits the ground. Back up. Over, and you could connect it, but we're not going to draw that connection again. And we can kind of see the top of the tire, and then as it comes down to the front, we see a little bit more. So we spread that line out, and then it starts to disappear. So that's how we have it thick, right? And then there's the inside coming around like this. Here, and coming around like that. We need to probably bring that shape in, just round it just a little bit more. And then you can see the rim coming in, kind of starts to flare about right here. You see a lot more of it here. And then it starts to disappear again, about like there. And that's where all your spokes are going to start coming in. Equidistant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then there's 12th one would be back here. Okay. Well, they connect on alternating rims. We haven't even put the pedals in, have we? How about we get some of these things in a little bit more for sure.